The rain fell in steady sheets over the quiet suburb of Pine Grove, painting the cracked sidewalks and sagging fences in shades of gray. Most of the houses on the block were dark, the kind of darkness that suggested they'd been empty for some time. One too many, for sale, signs staked in the front lawns, their corners curled from months of neglect. Among those lonely houses was a small, one-story home at the end of the street. It looked like all the others, except this one used to have life. Used to have the sound of laughter and the clicking of claws on hardwood floors. It used to be Sammy's home. Sammy, a golden retriever mix with eyes like warm honey and a tail that once wagged at the smallest sign of joy, stood at the front porch of the house he had known for years. His fur was wet, his paws muddy, and there was a tremble in his frame. He didn't understand. Just 3 days ago, there were boxes everywhere and loud voices. His people were packing. He'd wagged his tail, eager for the adventure. He liked car rides, after all. But then the door closed behind them. The car pulled away, and they never came back. At first, Sammy waited on the porch, tail twitching every time a car passed. His ears perked up at every footstep, every noise. But the sun set, and the shadows lengthened, and no familiar voices called his name. The food bowl was empty. The door didn't open. The first night, he curled into a tight ball by the doormat, nose tucked under his tail, trying to stay warm. He dreamed of squeaky toys and the scent of his owner's slippers. The second day, hunger gnawed at his belly. On the third, a stranger came, took the "for sale" sign, and left without noticing the dog huddled behind the hedges. By the end of the week, Sammy knew he had to move. The neighborhood had turned silent. There were no hands to pet him, no beds to curl up in, no dinner bowls filled with kibble. He ventured out, nose to the ground, sniffing, searching. The streets weren't kind. Garbage cans became his pantry. He learned to wait until the sun dipped low to sneak behind a bakery for scraps. He avoided other dogs, especially the ones that barked through fences or growled at him from alleyways. His once shiny fur turned matted and thin. A limp developed in his back leg, maybe from stepping on broken glass, maybe from the nights spent shivering on cold pavement. No one looked him in the eye anymore. Most turned their heads or hurried past when they saw him coming. Until one morning, something changed. Sammy had wandered into a park just outside the city, lured by the smell of grilled hot dogs. A family was picnicking under a tree. The father noticed him first, cautious, then sympathetic. The man tore off a piece of his sandwich and gently tossed it Sammy's way. Sammy didn't move at first. It had been a long time since a human looked at him with anything but fear or pity. But hunger won over hesitation. He limped closer, nose twitching, and carefully took the offering. The man smiled. "Hey there, buddy," he said softly. "You look like you've had it rough." The family didn't take him home, but they did the next best thing. They called someone who could help. That's when the van pulled up. It was white with blue letters on the side, Pine Grove Animal Rescue Center. A woman with short curly hair and kind eyes stepped out, holding a leash and a soft voice. "Come on, sweetheart," she said, crouching low. "We've got you now." Sammy didn't run. He didn't bark. He just stood there, tired, beaten, and still somehow hopeful. When the woman clipped the leash onto his collar, he followed her into the van like he'd known her forever. That was the day Sammy's life changed. The shelter wasn't perfect, but it was warm. It was safe. He was given a real bed, a soft one with clean blankets and a little name tag that read, Sammy. He hadn't heard that name in weeks. It felt strange, yet comforting, to hear it from the lips of people who cared. The first week was tough. The vet poked and prodded, checking his legs, his teeth, his ears. He had worms. He had fleas. He needed medicine, rest, time. But he also had a name again. And he had people. One of those people was Claire. Claire was a volunteer who came in every morning before school and every afternoon afterward. She wasn't allowed to adopt any dogs. Her college dorm didn't permit pets, but she made sure every dog she loved felt like they were already home. Claire took a special liking to Sammy. Maybe it was his gentle nature. Maybe it was the way he rested his head against her knees when she sat in the corner of his kennel. Maybe it was how he looked at her, those honey-colored eyes full of gratitude. "You're something else," she whispered to him once, brushing his fur. "Someone's gonna be real lucky to have you." Recovery was slow. Sammy's limp lingered for weeks. His coat took time to grow back. He was scared of sudden movements, loud noises, the echo of doors slamming. But each day, he got better. Eventually, he was allowed out into the play yard with the other dogs. He was hesitant at first, hanging near the gate, watching the others race and tumble like pups. Then Claire coaxed him with a squeaky toy, and he took his first gallop in what felt like forever. He stumbled, rolled into the grass, and wagged his tail like a puppy. That was the first time he barked again. A happy bark. The staff took new photos of him for the adoption board. His eyes were brighter. His coat glistened. His tail curled into a soft arc. Sammy looked like a new dog. Still, weeks passed. Families came and went, but none stopped for him. Too old, some said. Too quiet, others whispered. But Claire never gave up. He just needs the right people, she insisted to the staff. They'll come. You'll see. Then one rainy afternoon, when Sammy lay curled on his blanket watching raindrops trail down the kennel window, two figures entered the shelter. Umbrella in hand, cheeks flushed from the wind. They were young, maybe in their late 20s. The woman had a soft smile and eyes that instantly locked onto Sammy's. The man followed her gaze and nodded. Claire, ever hopeful, perked up. "Can we meet that one?" the woman asked, pointing to Sammy. Of course, Claire beamed. "His name is Sammy. He's very special." As Claire led him into the meeting room, Sammy felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt since the day he was left behind. Hope. The room was quiet except for the soft patter of rain against the windows and the hum of fluorescent lights above. Sammy stood uncertainly on the smooth tile floor, his paws hesitant, his eyes flicking between the two strangers seated in front of him. Claire gave him a gentle nudge. "It's okay, Sammy," she whispered. "Go say hi." The woman reached out her hand, palm down and fingers open. "Hey, sweet boy," she said, her voice low and calm. "You're even more beautiful than your picture." Sammy took a cautious step forward, his nose twitching. He sniffed her fingers, then moved toward the man, who simply sat still and waited. There was no pressure, no loud voices, just warmth, kindness. Claire watched from the side, her hands folded against her chest. "He's been through a lot," she said softly. "But he's come such a long way." The woman, whose name was Olivia, exchanged a glance with her partner, Ben. "He reminds me of the dog I had when I was little," she said, rubbing gently under Sammy's chin. "Same eyes." Ben leaned forward just slightly, allowing Sammy to sniff him. "He's a little shy." "He's perfect," Olivia replied. Sammy's tail gave a small wag. By the end of the visit, Sammy was resting with his head on Olivia's knee, his eyes half closed. Ben was scratching behind his ears in the exact spot that made Sammy's leg twitch. Claire couldn't help but smile. "I think we'd like to adopt him," Ben said. Claire's heart swelled. "He's going to love you." That evening, Sammy left the shelter with a red collar and a leash that shimmered in the soft light. Claire knelt down by the van, kissed the top of his head, and whispered, "You did it, buddy. Be happy." Their apartment was small but cozy, a second-floor walk-up with wide windows and plants on every sill. Sammy stepped cautiously across the threshold, sniffing everything. The couch, the rug, the bowl of water waiting near the kitchen. Ben and Olivia had prepared for him like he was a guest of honor. A soft bed in the corner, a new plush toy shaped like a duck, and even a name tag with "Sammy" etched in clean, silver lettering. "He can sleep in our room if he wants," Olivia said, sitting cross-legged on the floor. "He can sleep in our bed if he wants," Ben added. That first night, Sammy didn't climb into their bed. He curled up in the dog bed, nose tucked beneath his tail, surrounded by soft blankets. But he slept soundly. No trembling, no flinching, just peace. Over the weeks, Sammy blossomed. He learned the new rhythms of his life. Morning walks with Ben, who always stopped to let Sammy sniff whatever trees or lampposts he wanted. Afternoon naps on the couch with Olivia, who worked from home and always saved him a corner of her blanket. Evening treats, soft music, warm lights. They never raised their voices. Never pulled his leash too tight. They were gentle with him, patient. When he cowered at the sound of thunder, Olivia would sit beside him and hum until he calmed down. When he whimpered in his sleep, Ben would wake and whisper, "You're safe now, buddy." Sammy began to play again. first cautiously, chasing a ball across the hallway. Then, with more confidence, bounding through the park, ears flapping, tail high. Other dog owners watched in surprise when they learned he had once lived on the streets. "You'd never guess," one woman remarked, watching him fetch a stick. "He seems so full of joy." He was. And yet, there were still traces of his past, things that clung to him like shadows. Every so often, Sammy would stare at a passing car too long. Or freeze when he heard a suitcase being zipped. Once, when Ben packed a duffel bag for a weekend trip, Sammy retreated under the bed and didn't come out for hours. But Olivia understood. "He thinks we're leaving," she whispered, crouching beside the bed. "That we won't come back." So they started a new ritual. Every time they packed, they'd show him his leash, his food, and say, "You're coming with us, Sammy." Always. One Saturday, a few months into Sammy's new life, Olivia surprised him with a visit to the dog beach. The sand felt strange under his paws, soft and shifting. The breeze was full of salt and seaweed. He watched other dogs splash in the water, barking and running like wild things. At first, Sammy stayed near the shore, sniffing shells and watching seagulls. But then Ben tossed the duck toy into the shallow waves, and Sammy, eyes lit with curiosity, bounded after it. He hesitated at the water's edge. Then a wave lapped at his paws. He stepped in. It was cold and strange and thrilling. And then he was running, splashing through the foam, chasing his duck with joyous abandon. Olivia laughed, calling his name, and he circled back, soaked and wagging, tail sweeping like a flag in the wind. A couple walking nearby paused to admire him. "What's his story?" the woman asked. "He was abandoned," Olivia replied, running her fingers through Sammy's damp fur. But not anymore. That night, back home, Sammy curled up between them on the bed, "Just this once," Ben had said, and drifted to sleep to the sound of rain tapping against the window. He no longer trembled. The seasons changed. Sammy watched the leaves fall from the trees in the park, then watched the world turn white with snow. He wore a little red jacket Olivia had knitted herself and pranced through the drifts like a dog reborn. Claire, his shelter friend, came to visit one day during the holidays. Sammy recognized her instantly, tail wagging furiously, ears perked. "Wow," she said, hugging him tightly. "You look amazing." "He's the best dog in the world," Olivia said. Still afraid of the vacuum, Ben added, laughing. But that was okay. Sammy didn't have to be perfect. He just had to be loved. And he was. That night, they curled up in front of the fireplace, Sammy nestled between them on a big bean bag covered in blankets. A small stocking hung above the mantel, one with his name stitched in red. "Next year," Ben murmured, "maybe we'll move somewhere with a yard." "What do you think, Sammy? You want a yard?" Sammy gave a soft woof and rested his head on Olivia's lap. He didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid. The snow had melted, giving way to the first signs of spring. Tiny green buds unfurled on the trees outside the apartment window. Sammy lay stretched across a sun-drenched patch of floor, blinking slowly as the light warmed his fur. Life had become a gentle rhythm, a routine so peaceful, it seemed almost like a dream compared to the life he'd once known. Gone were the days of dodging cars and scavenging for scraps. Now, he woke to belly rubs and soft voices, the scent of coffee, and the jingle of his leash. But this spring felt different. One morning, Olivia knelt beside him, her hands gentle as always, her smile tender. "Hey Sammy," she said, holding out something new, a tiny bandana with the words Big Brother stitched on it in bright blue thread. Sammy sniffed it curiously, his ears twitching. "We've got someone joining the family," Olivia whispered, rubbing his chest. "A little human this time." She leaned in closer, resting her forehead against his. "You're going to be the best big brother ever." The next few months were full of change. Boxes appeared. Sammy watched curiously as Ben and Olivia packed and planned. There were baby clothes and tiny socks, strange new furniture that came in pieces and was assembled with late-night laughter and mild cursing. Sammy would trot around the mess with his duck toy in his mouth, occasionally sitting right in the middle of their efforts. "Sammy, that's where the crib goes," Ben said one day, stepping over him. Sammy blinked, unbothered. Despite the chaos, they never forgot him. Olivia still saved him a corner of her blanket for afternoon naps. Ben still whistled for him every morning for their park walks, now lined with cherry blossoms. Then came the move. The new house wasn't just bigger, it had something magical, a backyard. The moment Sammy stepped onto the grass for the first time, he froze in wonder. His paws sank into the earth, soft and cool. The sun filtered through the trees, and birds chirped above. Then, as if realizing it was real, Sammy bolted across the yard, running wide loops, ears flapping wildly. He rolled in the grass. He chased his duck toy like a puppy. And when he flopped over on his back and wiggled in delight, Ben turned to Olivia and said, "I think we made the right choice." The baby arrived on a calm summer evening. Sammy waited at the door when they returned from the hospital, tail wagging slowly, unsure. Olivia knelt down carefully, holding a tiny bundle swaddled in a soft blanket. "This is Lily," she said. "She's your little sister now." Sammy took a cautious step forward and sniffed the blanket. Then he looked up at Olivia, his tail thumping. From that moment, he rarely left Lily's side. He guarded her bassinet. When she cried at night, he would trot down the hall to nudge Olivia awake. When she giggled during tummy time, Sammy would nuzzle her toes, sending her into fits of laughter. Olivia caught the moment one afternoon, Lily lying on a blanket under the tree in the backyard, tiny hands reaching for Sammy's ears as he sat beside her, regal and calm. She took a photo, framed it. It would be the first of many. Sammy was no longer just a rescue dog. He was a big brother, a guardian, a beloved member of a growing family. Time passed, as it always does. Lily began to crawl, then walk. Sammy was her shadow, always nearby. He patiently let her tug on his fur, climb over him, and share her snacks, even when she wasn't supposed to. On her third birthday, Olivia found the two of them curled up together under the kitchen table, both sound asleep, frosting on their faces and crumbs scattered around. Everywhere Lily went, Sammy followed. To the park, to the vet, to the porch for popsicles in the summer sun. And every night, without fail, he lay beside her bed until she drifted off to sleep. "He's more than a pet," Ben said one evening, watching them from the doorway. "He's part of her story. And we're part of his," Olivia replied. Years passed in a blur of seasons and birthdays. Sammy's muzzle turned a little grayer. His steps a little slower. But his eyes stayed bright. His heart remained full. Even as Lily grew taller, even as new dogs came and went from neighbors' yards, even as storms rolled in and out, Sammy remained the one constant. Steady, gentle, kind. He taught Lily how to be patient, how to be brave, how to love something with your whole heart. And when she was old enough to understand what adoption meant, she sat on the porch beside him and whispered, "I'm glad they picked you, Sammy. You're the best dog in the whole world." His tail wagged gently, and he leaned into her. On a crisp autumn day, years after he'd first wandered the streets alone, Sammy lay on his favorite patch of grass under the old maple tree in their backyard. The sun was warm on his fur. The wind carried the scent of leaves and earth. Lily, now older, sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his back. "You're my best friend," she whispered. Sammy gave a soft sigh and closed his eyes, content. He had been lost once. But he had been found. And in finding his home, he had given one back.